live and learn when life gets tough and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian Mcdermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian Mcdermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative and natural ways to heal. And it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, after being diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, after I had the whatever virus I had where I lost my sense of smell and taste, I was told that there was a reactivation of Epstein-Barr in my body. Well, you know, I'm not going to listen to what doctors say or what's happening. I got to do my own research. And while I was researching for my own health, I stumbled upon Dr. Alan Christianson. He is a naturopath, and he's an endocrinologist as well. So I'll have him explain a little bit more about being a board-certified naturopathic endocrinologist. And as I started learning more about him, I thought, we really have to get this information in the classroom. And we're going to be giving away one of these books, the Thyroid Reset Diet, which caught my attention because I also have thyroid issues, and I wanted to learn more and more. And I'm so excited that we're going to have this conversation about how we can take our health back by learning how to reset our thyroid. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Alan Christianson is here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Christianson. Or would you like for me to call you Dr. C, as you're affectionately known as?
Whatever comes natural. But yeah,
Okay.
Thank you, Lillian. Glad to be with you.
Yes, thank you. Now, share a little bit about your background, because I don't think I've ever interviewed someone who is a board-certified naturopathic doctor who is also specializes in the endocrine system. So share a little bit about your background and how you found this passion for you.
Sure. So I'm a naturopathic medical doctor, which means I do conventional care and also naturopathic. I'm trained both ways. And in my residency, there was really an emerging rift in how thyroid care was done in the conventional world and the natural world. And it was a big, deep divide. You know, the conventional world pretty much said that few people actually have thyroid disease. Those who have it need one medication and one broad range of normal, and that's it. We're done after that. And the alternative side said, no, this can be much more pervasive. There are many treatment options. And pretty much almost anyone could be considered having thyroid disease based on some of the criteria, and anyone could be given any dose almost. So one side was the Wild West and one side was like, I don't know, just like shut down. And yeah, so I wanted to sort through that and make sense of it. And in doing so, I chose to focus on endocrinology. And so I underwent a board certification process. In the naturopathic profession, we have board certification as well in oncology, endocrinology, pediatrics. There's several specialties that we have that are established. And yeah, thyroid disease is my passion, so I focused on it.
Why? So was there other than hearing the differences and the dissonance of the way that doctors approach the treatment of thyroidism, did you have a connection to that? Did you know somebody that had a connection to that made you say, the buck stops here?
Yeah, well, definitely. So in residency, there was one specific patient that I had, and she was a young girl who was on medical disability. She was dropping out of high school. And as a kid myself, I had a lot of struggles with my weight, with my health, with my physical coordination, with just energy and stamina. Mm-hmm. And with me, most of it was stemming from cerebral palsy and seizures. Lifestyle measures helped. it wasn't easy because I was just so clumsy and so in a hole with my health. But over time, changes in lifestyle and diet, I was able to work out of a lot of that. Not everything, and there's still some orthopedic issues, but I was able to come a long ways. And I realized, how much your day-to-day health determines the quality of your life, and how it determines how others see you in your social world. And I also realized that, information plus me sticking to it is what turned that around. The medical information that I got, I don't know, it seemed well-intended, but it really didn't change things for me.
Mm-hmm.
But what lifestyle did change things. And so in my residency, I knew I wanted to work with people in ways in which I could incorporate lifestyle and natural medicine. And I resonated with those with thyroid disease because I had so many of those same issues, but I knew that they couldn't get out by lifestyle alone, that it had to be something more targeted along with it.
I've been told since I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism that I would always have it. And so these are some of the myths that I've outgrown in my life. And it's one of my passions. I want to be medication free. And I was on asthma medication since I was born, and major stuff that I was on. And back after a year, after I started it was a radio show at the time. After I started the radio show, interviewing Dr. Andrew Saul, he said, I can help you get rid of all that medication for your asthma. And so I said, bring it. And I did. And I've not looked back. And that opened my eyes that there's always hope. And so share a little bit about the hope you offer your followers and people who will learn about you for the first time today in the classroom.
I'll mention about that, but also mention how badly needed it is. So right now, the number one prescribed medication in the world is Synthroid. It's levothyroxine. It's a thyroid medication. And each year there's like a top 40 in music, right? So we've got listing like that in medicine. And thyroid meds never dip below the top 3. They're always in the top 3 globally. They have been for decades. So this is the most commonly prescribed medication. This is the most common autoimmune disorder. And thyroid cancers are the most rapidly increasing type of cancer amongst women. So this has all gone crazy since about 1990. We'll talk more about that. But then we also look at the surveys. There have been some really big surveys done about patient satisfaction. Like if it were a 5-star review, it would be like a half of a star maybe. So on 1 to 10 scales, most scores come in at about a 2. So there's more people being treated for this than anything else as far as chronic medications, and they're dissatisfied. They're not doing well. So it's a huge conundrum. And the problems are that, most people who are put on medications, probably 85%, never needed them. They were never in a situation in which the medicines would have helped them at all. And we now know that thyroid disease is highly reversible. So in terms of reversible, in terms of symptoms going away, yes. And in terms of no longer needing medication or needing less medication, that's true for most people. So I'm really excited to dive into the details with you. But yeah, if this is you, listen up because there's hope.
Absolutely. And for those of you who would like a copy of Thyroid Reset Diet, you can text me at 407-373-5959. And we will, like 3 or 4 days from now, we will pick your name out of the winner's basket. And I will let you know if you win this beautiful book. And again, the number is 407-373-5959. Get your copy. And if you have any questions, because this is going to be premiered, if you have any questions, Dr. Christianson has said that he will answer your questions. So put in a queue, write your questions down, and then I'll compile them all and send them to him. And then we'll get these answers to all of you. And so I'm very grateful to you for doing that as well. So let's talk about why the rise in hypothyroidism, and what are all the different thyroid conditions that we should look at too.
So I'll grab the second part of that first. So the thyroid makes hormones that control how much energy we make, how well our cells repair themselves, and how good our nerves work. So yeah, brain function, skin repair, energy levels, body weight, big stuff. And in terms of what goes wrong, the gland can make too much or too little hormone, so the output can be wrong. There can also be changes in the gland structure, and that can be thyroid cancer, nodules, goiters, lumps like that. And then finally, there can be autoimmune reactions. And to put it all together, the most common scenario is an autoimmune reaction attacks the gland and slows it down. And that's Hashimoto's disease. So most thyroid disease is a slowing of the thyroid, which we call hypo, like low or under. So underactive performance, and it's almost always due to autoimmunity.
And that's it, autoimmunity. But that
And
autoimmunity,
yeah.
the autoimmunity, and what I've heard is because it's associated with all these different toxins and metals in the body, and then it goes into our gland. And so the body is trying to remove that metal and toxin, and we call it that it's reversing. It's trying to attack us, but the reality is it's trying to pull it out. Is that what
It's
I
exactly
understand?
correct. It's exactly correct. The thing that's bizarre is that the toxic metal is also a nutritional metal. But
The
everything else I said
iodine.
exactly correct. Yeah.
So are you talking about the iodine? Because you talk a lot about iodine in this book. And by the way, great read. So when you're talking about the iodine, I've heard that people need more and more and more and more iodine. I was put on 10 drops of Lugol's, 5%, whatever. And for some reason, I just keep putting it aside. But part of that is part of the reset that you talk about is to get people to kind of release some of that iodine, which I never even thought of. So share a little bit about that and how this is another myth about iodine and hypothyroidism or thyroid problems.
Yeah, so this is a different story that you got to take everything you know about vitamins and minerals and just put it out the window because it doesn't relate to iodine. Most any nutrient you can pick up, we need it. We can commonly get too little. Our diets can be low in that. And if we get a little bit too much, there's no harm. Our body can get rid of the excess. That's true for almost anything you can think about, but it's just not true for iodine. And iodine and thyroid hormones, they live in a different world. They live in the microgram world. Everything else is in the milligram world and the gram world. So a gram is a paperclip, a milligram is a grain of salt. A microgram is 1,000th of a grain of salt. So yeah, so your body has a special gate on your thyroid, and that gate blocks iodine when there's too much, and it pumps it when there's too little. Now, the problem is if there's always too much, even by a little bit, it gets inside. And like you said, the body starts to attack it. It generates free radicals. There's not a big difference from person to person on the requirements, like the lower limit, like how little we need to get by, but there's a really big difference on the tolerance, like at what point is too much harmful. For a lot of people, they could get higher amounts and no big deal, water off a duck's back. They're not prone to thyroid disease. But genetically, those who can't throw off the excess as well, that excess builds up, that creates free radicals, that pulls in the immune system, and soon the thyroid gets damaged.
And when the thyroid and I guess I want to rephrase the way I asked that question, because the reality is the body is not attacking. I said, why is the body attacking? It's withdrawing. It's trying to take that out. What are some of the things that we're doing to cause more iodine? Because, not a lot of people take iodine, but I read that a lot of the vitamins and supplements have iodine. What are other things that could be causing the metal toxicity in the body?
Yeah, so what happened was that prior to 1992, there were a lot of countries that were low in iodine, and too low is bad as well. We actually had 112 nations that were categorized as severely iodine deficient. So we worked hard to reverse that, and it was effective. So the global intake went up by several notches. And we now have 0 nations categorized as severely iodine deficient as of 2014. So that was a really big win. But we now have 52 nations that are at risk for thyroid disease due to iodine excess. So it's this crazy, narrow, exacting thing. And again, most people, a little extra is no big deal. But if you're prone to thyroid disease, a little extra is a big deal. Like you said, it can be found in supplements. Some are made just to be carriers of iodine, like the Lugols you talked about. Other supplements have it as a secondary ingredient. A lot of multivitamins, a lot of thyroid support products, many others have it. And then we see it in more and more foods. And the amount in foods has been steady for a lot of foods, but it's gone up for a couple of food categories. And that's dairy products and processed grains. So about that same time frame, since about 1990, the amount of iodine in those two food categories has roughly tripled.
Why do you think that is? Because I know that in the 90s, I started developing some food allergies. And in the 90s is when I was diagnosed with thyroid condition. And of course, we didn't know anything about organic, non-GMO. We didn't have any of those options back then. Do you think that they have been adding this as part of the modifying the food?
For sure, part of modifying food. And iodine is a really useful chemical. It's a skin antiseptic. So think about like bleach or hydrogen peroxide. They're all sources of free radicals. You put hydrogen peroxide on your skin, it foams, it turns white. That's oxidation happening before your very eyes. And iodine does the same thing. So when you're making things in a factory, that sanitizes compounds. It also makes liquids dissolve more easily into solutions. So things are nice and thin and homogeneous. They're not lumpy. It also prevents against things going rancid as quickly. It acts as a preservative. And those are all things that are useful, but they add up inside the human body.
And as they add up, what are other ways that the body can release? Because I know that sometimes with the endocrine system, you can sweat it out. You can, I call it the 3 Ps. You can pee, poop, and and
Perspire.
perspire. 3 Ps. And so, what are some of the ways that we can actively, before doing this reset diet, is there anything we can do to actively release this iodine that we've been told we need more? It almost reminds me of fluoride. It's
sure.
like all this fluoride that's coming in the water to protect
Sure.
a few people that allegedly have tooth decay, but really it's creating all sorts of other issues. And so with that in mind, when I hear your story about, what's happening with iodine, it's like, okay, next verse, same as the first.
Well, so here's,
yeah.
So yeah, it comes in. All the ways you mentioned of elimination are all ways that iodine comes out. Most of it is peeing. But the problem, that's not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is not the kidneys, the bladder. The bottleneck is getting out of the thyroid into circulation. So iodine leaves the thyroid in thyroid hormones almost exclusively. There's the tiniest speck that gets out that's not part of a thyroid hormone, but that's insignificant. So it's only coming out as thyroid hormone. Now think about this. If someone's not making enough thyroid hormone, and now further compound this even further, now they're on thyroid medication. So there's really nothing coming out of their thyroid. So the iodine can't get out because there's no hormone coming out of your thyroid. So that's the double whammy. If you're on medication, if you're on more than you need, there's no iodine leaving your thyroid. And then the other issue is that even a little bit coming in each day might be enough to where that amount there just stays stuck. So it takes having a lower intake so the body can clear out that extra.
So can you discover, and because I know that for many of my followers, this is the first time that they're hearing all of this. So I want them curious enough to want to get this book, which you can get at Amazon. And if you click on the link for my blog this week, you will find the information for Dr. Christianson on my blog. So, and the book as well. So what I'm hearing you say is that it's stopping the process for releasing it. So let's talk about the diet and the reset and what causes this to come out of your body.
Yeah, for starters, let me just quickly entice them into why they might want to do that. So we had several big studies. One of the ones that I mentioned in the book took people that had thyroid disease for about 4.5 years on average. And they were pretty rough shape. They were markedly way outside of normal ranges. They were symptomatic. This group was not yet even medicated. And for 3 months, all they did was have them have a low iodine target, as I outlined in the book. Within those 3 months, 78.3% of them fully reversed severe thyroid disease. They were totally normal again. Now, that's a good enough number to take to the bank right there. But of those who did get better, there's a little more of a story. So of those that didn't get better, one big chunk was people that going into it was badly, badly abnormal. In terms of numbers, there's a test we use, one of the tests called a TSH, and that's how hard your brain is asking your thyroid to work. If your thyroid is shutting down, your brain yells at it. So the higher the TSH number is, the more the thyroid is shutting off. And a lot of these people had TSH scores in the 50 to 200 range. 4.5 is the upper limit of normal. So they were so badly off. And by and large, they got better. But some of them that were so far along weren't yet normal within 3 months, but they were heading there. So yeah, so one big group of those who didn't get normal still got better. Another big group of those that didn't get better simply wasn't compliant. when it was looked at after the fact, they just weren't following the guidelines very closely. So now if we say, well, how many of those who followed the guidelines, how many got totally better or very close to it? That number was 97%. So there's about a 97% chance of radically improving thyroid function for those that do embark upon this.
How do you know? Because when you're talking about the TSH number, the higher it is, does that mean the more iodine you have, or the more it's causing the brain? Explain the numbers, because
Sure.
I just recently had my thyroid checked, and we tested for 10 things, and my total TSH was like 0.01. It was really, really low.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you know what's causing the issue with the thyroid? Is it always iodine, or is it other factors like emotional factors as well?
Sure. So somewhere to answer the second part of that first, the factors that affect thyroid disease. So one large recent review went through all the known factors and wanted to answer that and said, of the things we know of, and basically said there's 3 things that are relevant. So one is age, one is gender, things we can't do a lot about, but they still relate. And so the third one they argued was iodine. And they said that iodine was not the only controllable factor, but as far as all the other things that have been studied that are controllable factors, it was more relevant than all the others combined. So of the things we can do something about, this is the one that matters the most. And in terms of what the TSH means, so when the number is high, it means the brain is yelling at your thyroid to work. When it's low, it means your brain is wanting to slow your thyroid, because your thyroid only works when it's told to work. So think about it like like an office worker that's kind of lazy. And if the manager nags at the worker every so often, he'll keep going, keep doing his stuff. But the second the manager is quiet, he's going to go goof off. He'll be on Facebook or whatever. So that's how the brain works with your thyroid. So when the TSH is between about like 0.5 and 4.5, that's considered normal. We could talk a lot about normal versus optimal, but set that aside for a moment. So the higher it gets, the more the gland is slowing down. When it's below range, there's too much thyroid hormone. And so in your case, that's just saying there's an excess. Mm-hmm. And as far as knowing what causes that, the diseases that cause too little are almost always Hashimoto's. That's over 95% of the time. And too much comes from being over-medicated for those who are medicated, or it comes from most commonly Graves' disease about 80% of the time, or toxic nodular goiter about 15% for too much. Mm. If you have someone's on medication, that just means they're getting too much medication.
And so that's what I've been trying to do. So little by little, I've been asking for my medication to go down. So now they're compounding it because they're saying that the balance of the T3, T4 is like off. And so I have the opportunity to read the book, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this to my doctor. And that's what I suggest all of you do. Please remember 407-373-5959. Your name will get entered into the winner's basket. And then 2 or 3 days later from now, I'll let you know when we are not sure when this show is going to air. So once it airs, then we will make sure that we'll get your name in the winner's basket. So make sure you start right away getting your number, and so that you can win this book. And only if you're in the United States will the book be sent to you. But if you are out of the country and you would like to pay for shipping, they will send it to you too. They'll figure out how to do it. So I'll get your name and number and all of that if you get selected. Okay, so before we start talking about the reset diet, the 28-day, which I love how you have it so simple. This is what you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That makes it so easy. Okay, so before we do that, I just want to make sure that you know that this is where we take 100% responsibility and ownership. The good thing is that if we created the issues in our body, we can uncreate it. And so I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, where I'm being heavily censored on Facebook and YouTube and all these other social media platforms. So follow me on whenyouneedafriend.com, and then like and follow me on all the social media. But we're going to start broadcasting from my website. So make sure you start subscribing and tell all your friends to do the same. While you're there, please check out my sponsors. Please support my sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. Check out my Shop Now bag, especially. I know this, and I don't know if you have your own product line, but Keep Me Safe Organics all all natural, no synthetics. There's no chemicals in from head to toe. So check out when you go to my little shop now bag, find the Keep Me Safe Organic. So at least you can do that to take some of that toxic overload from your body. And there's other products as well that will help you heal spirit, mind, and body. And it'll also help out the classroom. Last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom, and you can donate $1 or $1,000, whatever you can provide monthly. Time, talent, and treasure will be greatly appreciated. Today, we're talking with Dr. Alan Christianson, and you can go to drchristianson.com to learn more about what he's doing and how he's helping people with thyroid issues. And again, we're giving away one of the books. It's the Thyroid Reset Diet, and we're going to start talking about what does that look like. And because, you know, Dr. Christianson, a lot of people want to get well, but they're unwilling to do whatever it takes. And I really do appreciate how easy you have made this, like, you know, like day one, day two, this breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So let's talk about the principles, because as someone who is more plant-based, whole food plant-based, when I see eggs and I see animal products, which I have occasionally, I know that there are people that don't want to give that up. So I appreciate you including everybody. What is the optimal diet, because you have the two phases, there's the reset and then there's the maintenance. What is the optimal when people are going through the reset?
Yeah, so the diets are healthy diets. There's not a lot of moving parts that affect the thyroid apart from iodine levels. Mm-hmm. So the main goal for the reset phase is to bring someone's daily iodine intake under roughly 100 micrograms per day. When it's that low, that makes it to where the thyroid can get rid of the excess. Once someone has then reversed their disease, their symptoms are better, they're stabilized, they don't have to be quite as tight about that. They can then get away up to about 200 micrograms per day. So then they move on to the maintenance phase, and they just got more options. The foods are broken down into green light, yellow light, and red light. And red light foods have a lot of iodine. If you got thyroid disease, you're really better off just making them not regular things at all. The green light foods are consistently less than 10 micrograms per serving, no limits with those. And so the reset phase is just green light foods. The yellow light foods are about 10 to 50 micrograms. And once your thyroid's stable, then you can do a couple of those per day and do fine with that. So yeah, and it's really that simple. And you can just follow the food list and run. Or like you said, I've made meal plans. Like here's everything. Here's recipes. I'll
the recipes look great. Yeah. Did you create these recipes, or did you work with somebody to work with you on the iodine levels and all that?
This is mine. These are my recipes.
That's awesome. And so let me just put it this way. This book has all this amount of recipes, and they look really good. Some of your smoothies, I was looking at some of your breakfast. I'm like, I'm going to do that. And then this is the page I wanted to highlight, because this is the page that tells you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and the page where you can find the recipe. It's like a no-brainer. I really appreciate that, especially when there's a lot of people that just want to take the pill. And my registered service mark is you could take a pill, you could take responsibility. And people cool. Don't want, they just want to take that pill. And and it's not that I'm against the pill, it's that I'm for doing everything possible to live the life that we want to live. So let's walk them through a typical, day in the life of the reset. So they get up, they have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But what does that look like?
It's so simple. Well, for starters, I have people go through their supplements, because that can be a lot of iodine. What you talked about with that Lugol's that was recommended, that's literally hundreds of times above what's safe for anyone. The World Health Organization has said that there's a safe upper limit for those even not prone to thyroid disease, and you're talking hundreds of fold above that. So yeah, supplements can have massive amounts. So first, you want to avoid those that have iodine. Then a big thing that's a really easy swap is salt. So some versions of salt are fortified with iodine. Some versions have a lot of iodine naturally occurring. There's tons of versions of salt that have none in there. Mm-hmm. So it's not a matter of restricting it, it's a matter of just choosing the right types. And then I talk about cosmetics. So it turns out a lot of personal care products have a lot of iodine in them as well. Mm-hmm. And we do absorb enough across our skin to where it can be relevant. So that's kind of the easy stuff that doesn't change anything in the kitchen really. So from that point on, it's a matter then of just understanding the green, yellow, red light foods. And the cool thing is every food category, you've got low iodine options. So if you're already plant-based, that's cool. You're already so much closer to that. If someone else is paleo or AIP or gluten-free or regular diet, there's so little you've got to change to control the iodine. It's very easy.
Now, how can people get a hold of you, Dr. Christianson, or what is your advice? Because we've done shows about co-learning with your doctors. And that's one of the reasons I hired my doctor just recently. I said, okay, I do need a doctor. Let's work with me here. And especially when I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr recurrence because of the virus that I had at the beginning of the year. And they're working with me. Some of the things that I was sending them, they had no clue. And some of the things they already knew. So he said, well, we're going to have to retest. I had that dialogue with my doctor, but there are doctors who do not have this dialogue with their patients. They say, I am the final word. What is your advice to someone who's going to get their hands on this book and now they're afraid to reach out to their doctors? Is this a place where they could come to see you or call you? How can they start getting an advocate as opposed to a tyrannical doctor who has to be right about what they believe?
There's a lot of options. The very easiest first step someone can take is to just join me for free. I do a thing called Office Hours Live.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you ever had a college professor that did office hours, that's the idea. And most Mondays I do that, and that's like 3:00 Central Time. And just my at Dr. Alan Christianson on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, just Office Hours Live. And I always post when those are going to be, but most Monday afternoons. That's the easiest first step. Jump on there and ask some questions directly, and I can give some feedback and give some recommendations for further ways to work, if that makes sense.
That's great. And so all they have to do is like you on Facebook. Is that where you go live on Facebook and YouTube?
Yep. Yeah.
Very
Facebook,
good.
YouTube, and Instagram.
That's great. That's great. Because, there was a doctor I interviewed a long time ago who was a cardiologist. And so he started doing walk with the doc. And
Cool.
So they would walk around the park and people would bring him their x-rays, and he would like all their echocardiograms, all this stuff, and he would look at it while he was walking, and so everybody was walking with him. And I thought that was a very clever idea, and I believe that you're doing the same thing. We want a quick fix, and it's not that way. I just did a 30-day raw vegan challenge. That's when my life changed. I'm not raw vegan, but that was my journey, the beginning of my journey. And so my eyes were open, like, gosh, if food can make me feel this good, what else have I been lied to? And that just opened my whole thing. And here you are talking about the simplicity of, we've been hearing, you need iodine. And here you're saying completely opposite. It's cognitive dissonance for so many people. And what I found out was when we were doing the raw vegan challenge, again, I'm circling back 10 years later after I was challenged on the show to do this. We were like doing an anniversary kind of special thing. And people were like, well, I'm not feeling better, but okay, tell me what you have. Oh, all this list of things that they've had for 40, 50 years. What is the outcome by doing the reset, the thyroid reset, that people will discover that they need to be patient about?
Well, the outcome is what we've seen in clinical trials. So I mentioned the one study that was done on Hashimoto's. There have been other studies on undefined hypothyroidism and a thing called subclinical hypothyroidism. And in these trials, between 60 to 80% of people fully reverse their disease in a couple months. And honestly, there's a lot of ways in which the studies were done that now could be done more thoroughly. And I incorporated that into the book. So I think the numbers can be even higher than that. But yeah, you can reverse the symptoms, and for many people, they can reverse the disease. If you're on medication, you may need less, you may need none. This is entirely possible.
Have you ever seen such a case where
We
someone
see that
gets
every
better?
week. Yeah.
Okay.
That happens all the time.
Like I just wanted to stop my medication altogether. I wanted to stop my medication altogether. And I did that once and it backfired on me. And I want to respect my body and not do that to my body. But when you're talking about how there's so much iodine being trapped in the thyroid, that taking more medication is causing not the ability for the body to do what it needs to do.
Right.
So first question is, how can you test it's iodine that is the issue? Second, would it harm the body to just stop taking this medication cold turkey and allow the body to thrive the way it needs to thrive?
The first one, as far as testing iodine, there's a lot of tests available, but the difficulty is that iodine is in the thyroid at different concentrations than it is in the blood or the urine.
Okay.
So the tests are all useful for population levels, but they're not useful for individuals. There's no great tests. The book, really, if someone has thyroid disease from the most common causes, this can be helpful for about 95 to 97% of them. And it's worth following the guidelines, watching your symptoms, watching your levels. And thank you for asking about how someone can come off. It's a process. It's a process someone has to do with their prescriber. And the blood levels show when your body is changing. So if now your medication is more than you need, that means your thyroid is getting stronger, the dose can be adjusted, and you can be monitored. So that does take working with a doctor who knows how to de-prescribe. That's the term for that. But yeah, that's effective for many people.
And how do you know that the symptoms you experience, will you experience, like when somebody does the rehab or something, there's like, what do you call that? When somebody gets rid of drugs and they have like detox. So yeah, you can tell I've been in rehab a lot. So the detox period, how does the body respond to the detox period?
Well, that's a great question. In many cases, we think about situations in which you feel worse before you get better. And this is just not one of those. It's quite simple. Your thyroid can start to function more effectively. Now, the one difference would be that someone who's on medication and is working with their doctor, but let's say they have a big change before they're tested. Now, how much is in your body is a combination of what's in your pill plus what you're making. Mm-hmm. And now if what you're making goes up a lot, it could be that the pill is way too much. Mm-hmm. So it is possible for someone to have hyperthyroid symptoms. Their heart's racing, they feel like they drank a pot of coffee and they didn't. And the big scheme of things, it's a good problem. It means that your thyroid's getting better, but it's a problem. It's something you want to identify and adjust the medication promptly. But that's about the worst effect someone can anticipate.
I will tell you that I went onto your website and I took your test. I don't know if it was called the adrenal test or the thyroid test or whatever, but I was considered crashed.
Okay, that was the adrenal quiz.
My crash. And so I'm thinking some of those questions that you were asking, I'm like, am I overthinking some of these questions? So we're talking about the thyroid, but how important are the adrenals? Can the adrenals get the iodine? Can they be toxic and need to be detoxed?
The iodine thing is not relevant to them in any way.
Okay.
They're important and they can contribute to symptoms. They can affect health in a lot of ways, but the whole iodine thing really is a standalone way to reverse thyroid disease.
Well, I know that you have a hard out today, and we started a little bit later. And if somebody were to come in right now and look at, start listening to you and listen about the Thyroid Reset. And by the way, 407-373-5959, claim your book, claim your health back. And we will pick a winner in 2 or 3 days, or 3 or 4 days. That's what I said. So what would you say the main purpose of why you started this, why you wrote this book, and why they should get this book for themselves?
I've practiced endocrinology for 25 years, focusing on thyroid care. And a lot of things in this book have come out in just the last few years, and people haven't heard of it. And I'm really appreciative of you and the platform you've created and the help you've given people, and that we can share this message here. And that's why I wrote the book, because I want people to know that they can do better, that this is something they can heal from. They don't have to be stuck. They can transform very quickly with safe, natural methods.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I am still, as I was picking up this book, and thank you for sending it to me, I really appreciate it. And thank you for donating one to one of our listening friends. But as I was looking at this, reverse hypothyroidism and Hashimoto symptoms with proven iodine balancing plan. And as I'm looking at that, I'm going, okay, first I need to get over that you can never get away from this medication, that you will always have hypothyroidism and that there's nothing you can do. What are some other myths that you can share with people that may have heard something different? Like maybe another myth that you encounter all the time where your patients go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I could have that kind of hope. What would be some other myths that you would tell them to just like get rid of them?
Well, that's the big one. For people, it really means, can they feel as well as they did before they started? And do I need the pill long term? Now, there's those that lack a thyroid. It was taken out surgically. That's different. There's those where their thyroid is shrunk down to nothing. Maybe they were over medicated. Maybe they had a rare type of Hashimoto's. That shows up via ultrasound. So those are different situations. But for most all people, they can do better. For all people, they can feel better. For anyone listening with thyroid disease, I would argue that you can feel as well as you did before this started, if not better. So don't hold out for anything less than that. That's always possible. And for somewhere around 85 or more % of people, you can do fine on less medication. Somewhere around half of you don't need any. So this is entirely possible.
I'm certainly going to explore that for sure. But you tapped on something real quick because I'm looking at the time. People that do not have a thyroid, what advice do you give them? I know that you mentioned about the medication and for people with thyroid, and you mentioned people without a thyroid. What advice do you give them? Do they have to be on thyroid medication for the rest of their life?
In almost all cases, they do, because they have no means to make it. They simply lack it. There's some rare cases I have seen to where all the thyroid was not taken and the little bits left have grown back. That's not typical, right? So in most cases, they do. But a big % of them are still struggling and still symptomatic. And what happens is iodine affects how much hormone you make, but also it affects how your body responds to the hormones. So even if you are needing to take thyroid hormones longer term, they'll work better for you if your body is not flooded with iodine. So these things can still help you feel better.
Amazing. When I hear you say flooded with iodine, it's just like, okay, we need to rewrite the program. We need to rewrite the program. We need to check it. And I always say this in the classroom, don't believe anything that we've said, verify everything, be curious, not critical, verify everything. And you can go to all sorts of, all the references that you give in the back of the book as well. So research everything that you hear today so that you can make this your truth. Dr. Christianson, thank you so much for being part of the classroom today. We're going to say goodbye to Dr. Christianson, and then I'm going to come back real quick and discuss some other things with you. So thank you so much for being a part of this class. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian Mcdermott and Dr. Alan Christianson wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian Mcdermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
See you, Lillian.
Okay, we'll see you. What a great guy. What a great guy. I'm looking forward to learning more from him. He had we started a little late. He did not receive our notification of how to get on Zoom. And we wanted to record him because we feel that this is very important. So I want to encourage you again to go to 407-373-5959. Again, if you live in the United States, the book will be sent to you for free once you're selected. But if you're from another part of your country, in a country that doesn't have this book, and you feel that you want to pay for the shipping to receive the book by Dr. Christianson, please, you just let me know. You can email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com, and there's that email as well. So today's conversation is totally different than what you've heard ever. It's all been about iodine. Needed more iodine. Needed more iodine. Same thing. You need more fluoride. You need more fluoride. You need more fluoride. Next verse, same as the first. That's what I said earlier. We've got to verify everything. Trust nothing. Trust nothing. Verify everything. listen to what Dr. Christianson said. He also is available for his office hours live, which I think is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to learn from him. This is not the last time you will see Dr. Christianson in the classroom. I want to dive deep into this because this is a subject dear to my heart. I also love people that have lost their thyroid because of nodules, and I wonder if this will help reverse that as well. And so again, the book is called The Thyroid Reset, and I hope that you will do whatever it takes to live the life that you desire. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to remind you once again that if you have any questions, you can type your questions below in the comment section on Facebook and YouTube, if we are Facebook and YouTube at the time that we air this class. But we're going to start airing, this is the good news, we're going to start airing the classroom from whenyouneedafriend.com. So for those of you who watch on BitChute or Odyssey and you want to be able to watch the show live and you don't want to be a part of Facebook and YouTube, now you have an option. So as soon as we get this, again, as you know, all these changes cost money. So if you are willing to donate to the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000, please consider us. If you're looking to tithe or donate or whatever it is, we can use all the help. We have got to stay on top of it because you're not getting this information anywhere else. And so I want to encourage you to give and give generously. If you are watching us on BitChute, just hit that little $ and share this information with your friends and family, because this is the first time that I've really heard that too much iodine could be the problem. I'm going to throw away my iodine. That's all I'm saying. And I'm going to look into doing this reset. Maybe we'll do it all together. If you're interested in doing this, text me at 407-373-5959. Let me know that you would like to do this reset like we did the 30-day diet. Maybe this is a part of an issue that we can do together in a safe place. I'll reach out to Dr. Christianson and see if he would like to do this with me, because we've got to figure out what works. What works for you may not be what works for me. Your issues may be different than my issues. Your emotional baggage may be different than mine, but all of it combined, it all creates the issue. And we need to figure out, be that medical detective, where you get to figure out your own health and create the health that you want. And so we're going to say goodbye for now. And I hope that if you have any questions, type in your questions, type in and put your questions after, put a Q and write your question down. And then I will gather all that information and send it to Dr. C. And if you would like a copy of his responses, you need to email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com so that I can send you all his responses. Okay. I'm not going to be chasing after everybody because that would be too much for me. And I'm speaking from, taking care of myself. I want to make it as easy on myself. So you want the questions, send me it probably would be better if you email me the questions now that I think about it. That way you have my email, lily@whenyouneedafriend.com. But if you write it in Facebook, or if you write it on YouTube, the question on the comment section below, then what you can do is, what I'll do is I'll gather all that. And then if you want the answers, email me and I'll send you the answers. Okay. So you know now what to do. Again, 407-373-5959 for the thyroid reset. I will write in the description because like I said, this is a pre-recorded class that we've done, but I'll write in the description when we're going to be doing the giveaway. And I look forward to hearing from you. I'd look forward to maybe doing this, just taking this challenge or doing this reset together so that we can take our health back.